Thank you, Jean. Per the governor's extended proclamation 2828, and in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Jefferson County PUD is no longer providing an in-person room for meetings of the BOC. All meetings will be held remotely via Zoom until otherwise informed by the governor. Participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. If you are calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute, and *9 to raise a hand to request to speak. So just so we have it on the record for introductions, we have with us today CAB members Craig Durgan, Dan Taylor, Seb Eggert, Tom Engel, Gary Rowe, and Kellen Lynch. Did I miss anybody?
Bob McCauley.
I'm sorry?
Bob McCauley.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't see your name here. I'm looking.
No, it's on. Yeah, it's on here as common things. I logged in funny.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, the common things. All righty. So we do have Bob McCauley, and I did see you. I'm just looking at the participant list for convenience sake here. We also have joining us today our County Commissioner, Ken Collins from District 2.
UD Commissioner.
What was that?
I don't see,
That's his next position.
I'm sorry?
Never mind.
I don't see Kevin Street. Is Kevin going to be here today?
I believe he is.
Okay. Well, we'll welcome him when he arrives, but he's not here at this point in time. We have a customer service director, Jean Hall, and she's going to give us a presentation. And we have the PUD consultant and CAB resource guy, Don McDaniel. And taking our minutes today, we have Cammie Brown. So with that, I would ask for an approval of the agenda. If anyone has any changes or additions they would like to make, I will entertain that now.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been, who moved that?
Tom Engel.
Okay, so Tom Engel moved to approve the agenda, and that was seconded. Was that Gary Rowe?
That was Seb.
Oh, Seb. Okay, thanks, Seb. So that was seconded by Gary Rowe. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
I
I am having a technical problem here, so I hope I don't get lost on here.
Oh, Terry will fix it.
Oh, there we go. All righty, I'm all set now. So the first thing up on the agenda are the minutes from, let me get this. Cammie, this was from our August meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
And are there any changes or additions or corrections that anyone sees that need to be made to the minutes? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up here. Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as they are.
So moved.
Okay, and who moved?
Dan.
Dan. So that was Dan Taylor who moved to accept the minutes
Second,
as are, and seconded by
Bob McCauley.
Bob McCauley. Okay, it's been moved by Dan Taylor and seconded by Bob McCauley to accept the minutes as written. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. The minutes are accepted as written. So now we move on to the public comment. This public comment period of up to 15 minutes is for any items not on the agenda During the meeting, the chair may also permit public comments on other discussion items. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public who want to speak here today? Jean, are you seeing anybody?
No raised hands.
Okay. Well, in that case, it sounds like we don't have any public comment this afternoon. So we will move on to the Board of Commissioner update. Commissioner Collins, you're up.
I am now unmuted, so you can hear me. So you want an update going back several months since the last Citizens Advisory Board meeting? Probably not. So much more recently, all 3 commissioners participated in the PUD Association Annual Conference. That was particularly useful in terms of discussion of leadership styles and the difference between dealing with factual disagreement and dealing with more of a process issue. And it was very informative. It led me to purchase a book that the speaker had recommended, which I've not yet started reading. I'm looking forward to a visit at the PUD from Representative Theringer. He is very interested in what's going on with our PUD and broadband. And we got, thanks to the Public Works Board, a grant and a little bit more than $1 million. And we are waiting for word to come back on other grants that we've applied for. As you're aware, there should be, in the not too distant future, quite a lot of money flowing through the government pipeline that will also, if we're able to be successful in our grant applications, be able to very substantially extend fiber optic cable through the county and help people who are now either unserved or underserved. I have personally had to spend quite a bit of time dealing with local contractors upset about the letter that went out from the PUD having to do with vaccination policy. And I've chatted again with our general manager and with our attorney. And it's a difficult situation. There are people who have contracts with the PUD who do not want to comply with the vaccination policy. They have the option of applying for a religious exemption, but it's a policy that puts the PUD and the contractors, I think, in a very difficult position between a rock and a hard place. And as long as our general counsel is telling us you have to comply with the law, that's what we're going to do. So, and I'm looking forward to the end of the year and the start of the new year. I'll be assuming the position of president of the board of the PUD, which is a mixed blessing, but I'm looking forward to it. So it's a pleasure to finally be here again with all of you.
We have a raised hand, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, I was wondering how the vaccination mandate relates to the responsible bidder language.
I'm
Lowest
not-
responsible bidder is the language that's been used statewide for, I don't know, 45 years or more. And I don't believe that that's part of the responsible bidder language unless it's been amended recently.
I don't think it is.
So that may be a sticky wicket.
Well, but we're going to follow the advice of our legal counsel. And that's pretty much the beginning and the end of the story, because we're under the mandate from the governor because we contract with the state. So I think that overrides other considerations. And I don't know that we want to spend a lot of time debating the issue, but
Well, I'm not going to debate the issue.
well, I see a bunch of hands
I'm
up.
trying to unraise my hand here and it's not working.
There you go.
Up again.
So a couple of other hands raised.
Yeah.
I think I saw Seb's hand raised there.
Ken, great to see you. Thanks for joining us at the meeting. So my understanding is that you were just at a Waputa meeting. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I understand, well, I don't understand. I'm asking the question, which is how many of the other public utility districts are going along with the governor's mandate? Do you have a number or a percentage?
I don't.
It'd be interesting to find out what their legal counsels tell them. You know that Biden's mandate has been shot down in a number of different federal courts across the country. So I'm just curious how that all goes. I'll leave the rest for another time. But thank you so much. Great to see you.
Good to see you. You don't have your beard anymore.
You know, I'm trying to keep up with your good looks, and it's a tough game. I just can't.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
And it's great to see all of you out there. It's nice to get together again.
Yes, it is.
And so
Seb, you still-
many Zoom meetings, people don't put on their cameras. I'm disappointed because you can't read facial features. You can't make remarks about people's beards or lack thereof. So anyway, thank you all for that. That's all for me.
Thank you, Seb. Craig, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've made any provision on rehiring the people that were terminated, should the courts determine that what was done is unconstitutional or illegal.
Well, I think we would cross that bridge if and when we come to it, but certainly there's only one individual who I think will wind up being terminated. There's a second individual who already was making plans to leave the state for opportunities elsewhere. But I think it would only be reasonable if the courts decide that the governor overreached his authority, that we reconsider and rehire anybody who was affected by that policy.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, Commissioner Collins, it is a pleasure to see you again, and it is a pleasure to be together in a meeting here again. Thank you so much for your report and your good answers to the questions posed to you. Looks like next up, Kevin Street for General Manager's report. Good to see you too, Kevin.
Good to see all you guys. This is got to be a short report. The staff is extremely busy with year end. For the PUD, year end is calendar year end. And for a lot of projects, we try to get them completed so they don't run over into the next budget. We try to get all of the contractors that the work was done in 2021 to actually bill us in 2021 so that it doesn't move over into 2022. Which means, for example, Scott Bancroft is extremely busy trying to get some projects finished up. We have Mike Bailey, who's doing year end and trying to clean up all the financials for 2021. And we have Gene's group and everyone else. Year end is a very big deal. Um, Moving into 2022 poses the opposite challenges. We try to put together our work plan. We know what projects we're going to tackle, or the majority of them, and we try to put them in some priorities so that projects that need to be done sooner are done at the start of the year. We do have a couple WASDOT projects that we need to get done sooner than later, so those will go to the front of the process. Some of them that we know, we have a project in Port Townsend that we know we can wait till late springtime. So for staff, this is a busy time of year. You put the holidays in and everything else, it's been just tough to get a lot of things done. One high point, and Commissioner Collins hit on it, we have applied for many, many broadband grants. Will O'Donnell and our consultant, Doug Dawson and Lori Ray, have just been an outrageous amount of time applying for and putting us in position to get some of the upcoming federal and state funds. I feel very confident that a lot of these funds will be available to the PUD. And I do think the commissioners should be thanked. They're putting us in position. For example, we're pre-purchasing some fiber. We're doing some things now that is going to make us successful when we do get the grants, and we'll be able to get them done in a timely fashion. So a lot of hard work's going in to broadband right now. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Kevin. Does anyone have any questions for Kevin? Craig, do you still have your hand up, or is this?
Yeah, I have a question on the status of the power that you're running from Elkins Road across Washington Lane to Chimicum, or no, to Oak Bay Road. I just wonder, I see that the vaults have been buried. I just wonder what the timeline is on finishing that.
That's a multi-year project. It actually comes out of our Chimicum substation, and in our long-term project, it will give us 3 feeds, basically one to Indian Island, one to Maristone, and one to Port Ludlow. But that's a 10-year project. Right now, just a small part they're doing will take them approximately 2 weeks to complete. And then we're just finishing up easements coming right out of the substation. The next phase will actually be to bore underneath Chimicum Creek. We hope to do that midsummer, but and then just start tying things together.
So I'm just curious though, when it's multi-year phased in, but when will it be laid from Elkins Road through to Oak Bay Road?
Probably 2 years.
Okay.
There may be some rush, not necessarily for the power, but this is part of our communication strategy to run a bigger pipe, at least to the intersection there on Oak Bay Road. So that may push us a little quicker on the electrical, because everything's in the same trench.
So you're going to upgrade the water also?
We talked to the water department and they chose not to participate in this project.
Okay. So what's the part boring under Chimicum Creek? You're going another direction from the substation?
We're coming straight out of the substation and going underneath Chimicum Creek and turning and going up. It's not Elkins, I can't think of the name, but yeah, we're this way. We get 2 brand new circuits all the way from Chimicum substation through to Oak Bay.
And it'll all be underground?
Yes.
So that should hopefully improve our ability to retain power when we have all these storms?
It's going to give us a lot of capabilities. The underground does tie into the overhead stretch though, but it will give us ways to split it out so that a problem, because it's all one circuit now, so a problem in one area affects a larger chunk than it should. And with these new feeders there, it'll give us be able to split it more and feed it most of the time under different situations, so less people would be affected.
So would this address when earlier in the year we had that power outage that affected almost the whole county? Would that help with that?
It might, but it all depends on where you live and what took the county out.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have questions for Kevin? Seeing none, Kevin, thank you so much. Good to see you again, and thank you for your good report. We will move on to item 7.1. And this is a discussion of a joint Board of Commissioners and CAB meeting to be held sometime in 2022. And in my discussion with Don McDaniel, it was hopeful that we will be having a joint meeting sooner rather than later, so we can start to lay the groundwork of what we can start doing in 2022. So we won't be having these meetings that are months apart, but that we will begin to form subcommittees that can address particular projects and issues, and thereby have a reason to have a meeting so that we can get back together and get reports from the subcommittees. So I'm not sure yet where this fits in. I know Don and I were talking about hopefully getting something as early as January. And since a strategic plan has been completed, that was something we were waiting for. I would hope that we wouldn't have to wait for your work plan to be completed, because then I know we're going to be just pushing this out, another 4 or 5 months or better. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out there and get some thoughts and ideas from you all about what you think about a joint meeting and what might be accomplished. Does anybody have any comments to make on that? Or I see, oh, I thought I saw a hand up, but,
You saw mine.
oh, okay.
So I'm wondering, Ken, if the first board meeting in January, which I think is on the 4th, if that discussion could be had with the board to kind of set a date and maybe have a little bit of framework on what we might talk about.
Yeah, I'd like to see it on the agenda.
Cool.
Okay. I'm just looking to see if I've got any hands up here, and it looks like, oh, Tom Engel.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really would appreciate it if we could get the meeting going as soon as possible so that we could get our subcommittees activated and actually working. And also, I guess the question, I don't know if this is a separate issue. Have we made any decisions about how frequently the CAB is going to meet in 2022?
I would hope that we can get back to monthly meetings. However, that would be dependent upon the outcome, I think, of a joint meeting, so we can get better direction as to how we can best serve the PUD and the commissioners in our efforts. Craig?
I was just curious, I see there's one person missing. Is it because they are just not here, or the position hasn't been filled?
Jerry Wilson, and I was going to get to this, but I will let you know now. Jerry Wilson has resigned He has some serious health problems and so is not able to continue with the cab.
So if I can comment briefly on that, our policy has been to advertise that we're looking for a volunteer. And I certainly would be open to any suggestions that any of you have for somebody in District 2 who can fill that position. And typically what we ask for is a resume and a letter of interest.
Thank you. So if any of you know anyone who is in District 2 who may be interested, or know a couple of someones who are in District 2 who may be interested in serving on the cab, by all means, pass the information along. And I'm sure we will be advertising for this as we have in the past. So if we don't have any more discussion about this joint cab meeting, and it seems like we are, again, kind of up in the air a little bit because we need to wait until it goes to the commissioners meeting, and of course to know a convenient time for staff also to be participating in this. So I think we'll move on from that. As we're getting into the elections of officers for 2022, I just want to thank you all. I've enjoyed working with all of you. As I said, Jerry Wilson has resigned from the cab due to his health issues. And he was an excellent participant. He had good comments and good questions. And I just all around enjoyed Jerry. Gary Rowe's term ends at the end of December. And so this is his last meeting with us. And Gary, we're just really indebted to you. I think the cab from here on out, you took on quite the project when you first came on to go back and research our history and put it in a way that's easy for anyone who's a current cab member or a new cab member coming in to see what we've done in the past and what kind of subcommittees we've had. And that just had to be a labor of love because that was an awful lot of work and I really appreciate it. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up at this last meeting of yours, and you will be missed.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Gary.
So with that, we will move on to the election of officers for 2022. This is a one-year term. And I see Gary Rowe has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you for those kind comments earlier. As far as the election, I nominate Tom Engel for the position of chair.
I would second that nomination. Do we have any other nominations? I'm not seeing any hands. I'm just going to give folks a minute because I know sometimes I have a difficult time raising my hand. Seeing none.
Why not you again?
I don't know that we've ever done back to back. The terms are for 1 year. So I have not seen that. Don?
Just for the heck of it, why don't I nominate you for a second term and see if that takes hold anywhere? I think Con be terrific, but I also have enjoyed having you as our leader. So I like a good fight. Let's see you two fight it out.
Well, there would be no fight. If Jessica were willing to do it again, I'd be more than happy to step back.
Well, maybe you could second her nomination.
I second Jessica's nomination.
Oh boy, now we're in a hot mess. Okay, let's see what I've
Tammy,
done.
you're going to have a field day with this one, getting the minutes done. Well, I'm not seeing any other nominations. I don't know, as I said, I have read through and the term is for 1 year, but there is nothing that I have seen that has said you can serve more than one term and consecutively, or that you cannot. So that being the case, I will put out there all those who wish for Tom Engel to be the chair. in
Excuse me,
2022.
I've stepped back.
Oh, you're stepping back. Okay, well. Okay, all those in favor of Jessica Dillon for chair in 2022, please designate by saying aye. Or raise your
Aye.
hand so we can see you.
Aye.
Aye.
Dan, that's 2 votes. You only get 1.
I didn't know if I had them both in the screen.
So Jessica, they've duct taped you right back to the chair then.
Okay, well, thank
Sorry
It
you.
was a
about
pretty
that.
short term.
Yeah, well, it was, and I hope that I get to host more meetings this year than this past year. And I thank you very much. I think.
So Tom, I got you off the hook. You're welcome.
Thank you. I owe you one.
So we need to nominate a vice chair.
Chair Dillon, I would nominate Tom Engel for the position of vice chairman.
Thank you. Gary Rowe has nominated Tom Engel for position of vice chair.
I'm all in favor of vice.
You got my vote.
Okay, do we have, and I would second that nomination. Do we have any other nominees? I'm looking around like I'm looking at something. I'm actually looking at the list of participants because that's the easiest place to see the raised hands. Okay, I'm seeing none. All those in favor of Tom Engel for vice chair in 2022, please designate by raising your hand or saying aye.
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 That sounds unanimous to me. Congratulations, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Okay, well, moving on from there, it looks like Jean, you get to take care of the rest of this meeting just about.
All right, well, I will be quick. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen here, and let's see. This is actually in the packet, so if anybody's having trouble following along. And I actually lose my ability to see hands very well, so shout out if you have a question. Most everybody is on the same page and knows the Clean Energy Transformation Act, CETA. We've been talking about it in meetings for the last year. Sets Washington on a path towards clean energy. Have to be coal-free by the end of 2025 and greenhouse gas neutral by January 1, 2030. And 100% non-emitting by January 1, 2045. So we meet these standards already because we purchase our power from BPA. Part of that, we need to have a clean energy implementation plan. It's required every 4 years, and the first draft is due January 1, 2022. And we are running up against it, so we are hitting the ground running with this. It has to be approved by our Board of Commissioners, and public input is required. So what I would like to do is have a roundtable with this group and get your input on this survey. We will discuss it again at the board meeting tomorrow night. We have also reached out to Olympic Community Action and contacts at Jefferson General or Jefferson Healthcare. They are also have been working on identifying vulnerable populations around the county. So we're hoping to share some data with them. The part that we need to work on the most is the equity portion and the public input. We need to identify highly impacted communities as defined by the state, identify vulnerable populations defined through the public process. So that's what we're doing, putting together thoughts, ideas, data points to identify these folks. One or more indicators defined through this process used to estimate the distribution of costs and benefits from the utility actions planned to meet identified targets. So by identified targets, that means, so we already have a very robust low-income program that meets those requirements. Going forward, we will be required to improve upon our program year after year. And the other part is how we're going to reduce the risks to highly impacted communities and vulnerable populations. So it's just basically, we need to identify those folks, find a way that we can get them the help that they need to the best of our ability. Are there any questions so far? Tom, I see you waving your hand.
Yes, I wonder, since you said that we meet all the requirements outlined in the first sequence of bullets, we basically have no change going forward. So I don't quite understand how we have to, how there would be people who are impacted by what we start doing in 2022.
So we meet the initial requirements. We have a program in place. And this is speaking of the low income and vulnerable population. But we do have to improve upon that year after year. And I believe it's 15% improvement over the next, I think it's 2030, but don't quote me on that. I still have vacation brain. I can get back to you on the year. But we do still have to identify that vulnerable population. Dan, I see your hand up next.
Yeah, what you said, the improvement has to be 15%, but what 15% of what? 15% more people, 15% less people, 15% in terms of money or power output. What does that mean?
Yes, we're so Commerce has been very vague. What I can say is that we need to reduce the energy burden for those vulnerable populations, and that will be a part of it. And also the amount of money that we put into the program would count towards that.
So my mother used to say something that I think is relevant here. If you don't want your relatives to stick around after the holidays or during the holidays, don't feed them.
Right.
And so if we want to improve things, then, and it sounds like it's talking about less rather than more. In other words, getting people away from those roles so that they're more self-sufficient, then we need to work toward that in some way.
Perhaps, but that is not part of this program. It is to increase the amount of support and assistance that we are delivering to those vulnerable populations.
So could that also mean that we start paying all of their power bill instead of assisting with their power bill?
I don't see that as happening, Seb. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere, and some folks have to, I mean, you use power, you have to pay for it. Now, whether they get assistance through OLICAP, there are still other programs like LIHEAP. We do still have our rainy day fund. We just have to track and monitor it.
Would it also include things like better insulation, better windows, heat pumps, that kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. That makes more sense to me. Thank you.
Gary, I see your hands up next.
Yeah, so the discussion is focused on, I think, financial or you know, I guess those type of things. But what about vulnerable due to, you know, lack of power or some other type of thing where, for instance, they may have conditions or other types of things that could be affected by power not being provided during an outage. Is that part of your consideration for vulnerable?
Not so much during an outage, because that is uncontrollable and an act of God in most cases. So, but it does pertain to, and I'm not sure how we can help with this part. It's part of what.
So I guess in terms of the
populations.
In terms of the input, I'm using this as a forum for public input. I guess my input is that I think that the PUD should consider the impact on vulnerable populations when the power is not available to them. Not just financial impacts.
Okay, I will note that. Tom.
Well, Gene, I'm still still don't quite understand this. If I look at the bottom group of bullets, the second one from the bottom says, we're going to estimate the distribution of costs and benefits from the utility actions planned to meet the identified targets. But if we have already met the targets, that there are no additional costs and benefits. So I don't really understand how this applies.
So over time it applies.
Well, but not before 2030 then. Or for instance, are we not greenhouse gas neutral?
We are good on that part of it.
So what is it that we're not good with?
We are good on all of it. We do have to improve, and we have to identify the vulnerable population. That is what we have to do. And we have to have a plan filed that states who those populations are.
Okay, is there a place where we can see the wording that says we have to improve? Because nothing in what you have up here shows that.
We can move forward into the survey, and I would be happy to, after this meeting, email out copies of the documents from the Department of Commerce. Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't recommend it. It's not a good read.
Bedtime, go to sleep.
Won't make the New York top 10, right? Jess?
Yeah, what I was wondering with some of the discounts or assistance with paying for the use of the electricity, is there something in place? There's a lot of talk in Port Townsend about setting like small houses up or something to house the homeless. Are you working with them on something like this? And would there be something available for, I know there were things available earlier in the pandemic for small businesses who suffered due to not being able to be open the hours that they're normally open. And if nonprofits get any kind of discount or consideration on their electric bills.
We don't currently have a plan in place or a policy in place for nonprofit discounts. We have discussed it over the years, but we have not done anything like that. As far as the tiny homes, that would not be within the PUD's purview. What would be in that case would be working out a deal to help reduce costs. But I don't know what we could do in that case. Just they would have to pay the cost to get the power to those homes. Whether we could create a discounted service, I don't know. That would be definitely something for discussion.
Okay, thanks. And I just want to mention to everybody here too, if, you know, we just got this. And so, and I know it's something that you've been working on a lot. If other questions should occur to you between today and tomorrow at 4 o'clock, you could attend the Board of Commissioners meeting and then present your questions there during public comment on this particular issue.
Or
Thank
you
you,
could
Jen.
email them to me, but the board meeting tomorrow is at 10 and not 4.
At 10?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I better get up early then.
Dan, you've got your hand up?
Well, I don't want to put words in Tom's mouth, so I'll just say I'm still confused about what's to be improved. And I think we need to ferret that out. And I guess if that means reading the obnoxious document, then we need to do that. So
What
I at
needs
least
to
would
be-
like a copy of that, and I'll try and figure out what it is we're supposed to improve upon if we're already doing well.
So Dan, what needs to be improved is we have to increase the assistance year over year by 15%. I don't know what that definition is. That's part of what we need to do. And for this plan, for the CEIP, we have to identify the vulnerable populations.
So if I got this right, it's got a 15% escalation built into the improvement.
Yes.
And it seems like that's going backwards. It seems like we want to help people get away from that.
But that is not the directive.
That's not the
part
way
of
it's
the
written.
No.
Okay, all right, good enough. Thank you.
Commissioner
Jean?
Collins?
Yeah, Gene, did you mention the loan application that the PUD has with RUS to provide a revolving fund so that people can borrow money at a very low interest rate in order to make improvements such as switching from wood burning to electricity?
I did not mention that yet, Ken, but that is part of it. And that comes on the section to help identify indicators. It's page 6 of the packet. And that would go down under public health and environment. And we'll even use that as an example when he put this together. And that's where the RESP program would fall. Craig?
I just wanted to clarify, are we just talking increasing financial assistance? Or is there more to it than that?
There's gonna be more to it than that. We're gonna have to combine several metrics to get that to work. So a reduction, both financial assistance, however many different ways we come together to reduce the overall energy burden for those consumers. It could be a combination of increased assistance funds, energy efficiency measures in the home. We need to reduce the energy burden. And the definition of energy burden would be the annual energy consumption cost divided by the annual income. And the optimal place for that ratio to fall is about 6%. So anything over that is an excessive energy burden. Currently, we are tracking that through our low income program, and Maureen Whippy is also working with Olympic Community Action and folks that they help. And she's reaching out to those customers to gather that data. We don't have enough data to provide an accurate report at this time, but that is something that we are working on.
Hey,
Thank
Gene,
you.
what was that percentage again, please?
6%.
6%. So that's cost of energy divided by income.
Yes, annual income.
And so what you're looking for is less than 6% as
Yes.
a place to improve?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything over 6%, we need to improve.
Oh, okay.
We do have some that are at near 20, 30%, and that is excessive.
Wow.
So, and that's just a small sampling. So
Wow, okay,
there's work to be done in the county.
yeah.
And not all of that falls on the PUD either. I mean, there is work to be done in the
Oh,
county.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, any more questions or are we good to move on?
Please move.
Okay. So next up, help identify vulnerable populations. And this is the part where we just need to go round the table and come up with ideas. What are your ideas? How do you see us identifying those populations? Currently, we're looking at our low income households, rainy day recipients, repeat cutoff customers. And we're speaking with, like I said, I've reached out to contacts at the hospital because they have been doing this research this year. So hopefully they can have some input. Commissioner Collins, is your hand up new or is that from before?
I didn't take my hand down. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Must ache by now.
So how is a vulnerable population defined? Communities that experience a disproportionate cumulative risk from environmental burdens, adverse socioeconomic factors, including unemployment, high housing and transportation costs relative to income, access to food and health care, and linguistic isolation. Sensitivity factors such as low birth weight and higher rates of hospitalization. So those are obviously questions that we can't answer and we need help answering those.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Right. Craig.
I'm just wondering how the homeless camp up on Mill Road ties into this. Can that be also used as showing that, you know, we're improving the aid to people? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they have power up there. I don't know who pays for it. But I just wonder,
Do they have power? I mean,
I would imagine they have power. And so, I mean, I'm just saying that that's an area that you should capture
okay.
because we've already done that, right?
And they for sure got water.
Yeah.
Okay. Kellen.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. Yeah, I don't know if they do have power there, but OLICAP is, of course, the managing partner there. So could be great to reach out to them. Another idea as far as gathering data on potentially vulnerable populations is speaking with the school districts, specifically around families receiving free and reduced lunch vouchers. I think that would be one avenue to gathering more data. And then there's also the Peninsula Housing Authority, which is the designated distributor of housing choice vouchers. But that's probably already on your list. So thank you.
Good examples. I'm typing as you go.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Gary.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious as to the PUD's outreach effort on this particular plan. Is this meeting with the CAB the only outreach that the PUD is doing to get the input on this particular CEIP or whatever it's called? Or do you have other outreach efforts going on that we don't know of?
So Will has been working on it. What I'm positive that we have done for outreach would be Olympic Community Action. I'm sure we've reached out to them. And the hospital. I'm sorry.
I'm speaking to public, citizens, the common citizens who may have input. Do you have outreach plan for that type of input?
We have not done that yet. We are discussing how that is going to move forward.
I guess my thoughts are some of the questions here are, I feel like I'm unqualified to be able to provide input to be able to give you a broad answer to the questions that are being asked. And you might need to do some outreach in a general way to in the different parts of the county to get their input on these particular issues.
I will note that and we will discuss that further. Craig.
I just wanted to also point out that there were several churches that put in those wooden tent cities, I think they called them. So you might want to talk with them.
Okay. Thank you. Seb.
Yeah, it just seems a noble cause, but to repeat other comments, we're not really qualified to do more than just observe our power bill, those that are tardy on their power bills. It's kind of out of our lane, really, if you think about it. I mean, I think input that we have would be based on what we know. And then we'd have to get the other input from those other organizations that service those people less fortunate than ourselves personally. So I don't know if, how much staff time needs to be spent to talking to Holy Cap and the hospital and everybody else. Is this solely placed on the PUD to do this task, or is it also part of somebody else's task?
For this, this is for the PUD for this part.
Hmm.
And this is going to be a living document. We just need to show Commerce that we have started this discussion, and we need to show them, we need to list out what we are looking at. And I'm sure as we go on, we will do increased public outreach and ask for more input on the survey from in other venues other than the CAB or board meetings.
Do we get anything for this work? Do they give us, some nice grant?
No.
Huh. It's a giveaway.
It's out of the goodness of our hearts.
I see. Well, goodness is a great thing, but again, it's another possible burden to the ratepayer owners of the PUD to have to further a project to which there's no obvious reward to us other than the altruistic value of helping somebody less fortunate, which I'm all about. I mean, that's great. But I don't know. I think we have to kind of keep an eye on that. Gene, are they going to overwork you with this, or is this something that's not a big deal?
I'm already overworked, so at this point, it's
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, but
it's all
thank you.
English.
Thank you for your service to our community. Okay. All right. Got it. Thanks.
Jess. Oh, you're muted.
That was when my cat was walking by and the phone was ringing. So you pretty much answered the question I had going forward in speaking with Seb, because when I got this and I was looking at it and it said, well, you need to have this beginning January 1, 2022. I was thinking there's not a lot of time here, but you just said it's a living document so that you can do continued outreach and update this document in some way, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, it does look like, even though this may not be our bailiwick, that we are giving you some good input. So
Absolutely.
We're glad to do that, and I'm glad to see the things that have come up here. Okay, that's all I have, really. Thanks.
Yeah. Kellen.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Just to Craig's point about the tiny shelter villages, a great contact for you is United Methodist Church in Port Hadlock. Scott Rosecrans is the pastor there, and he could help get this out to the folks in his congregation. And also, just to Seb's point, I'd like to point out that lowering the energy burden, especially in rural areas, definitely benefits the utility, benefits all the ratepayers, because there is already a $500,000 rainy day fund for these things, and that doesn't need to be increased if we're doing this kind of work. So lowering energy burden is always a good thing.
Okay. Any more?
My hand.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Bob McCauley. I'm still confused on this. The last few minutes of discussion have all been around supporting vulnerable populations in terms of their, their costs in general. And yet specifically in this document, it's talking about the costs and benefits related to PUD's efforts to meet the standards, which we already meet. And there are no obvious projected costs of continuing to meet those. So what is it we're supposed to be looking at?
We have to increase our efforts and increase the amount of support by 15%.
The support, but again, support to what? Support to just general PUD or general utility cost, or specifically the costs of our meeting these standards?
So I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I'm understanding your question. We need to identify the vulnerable population, and we need to make sure that in meeting the standard, which we already meet at this point, that any of those costs, we need to do we need to be equitable. So any increased cost, any related to CETA, we have to make a transition equitably. I'm not sure how else to answer that question, sir.
Well, again, what's an example of what it might cost to meet standards that we already meet? That's what I don't understand. Where are those costs coming from?
Most of the changes that we will need to look at will not affect us until the end of this January 1, 2045 here. So we have to be 100% non-emitting by 2045. Right. Whether or not we can do that with BPA, I don't know. We don't know what those costs are going to be. And maybe Kevin can jump in here. Sorry, you're smiling. I know that smile. It's not a good smile. So
what you're basically saying is that there may be costs coming up that we don't see on here.
There could be, yes. And there will be cost in improving our assistance to our customer base. So we have to increase the amount of assistance we give them. How are we going to do that equitably? And what are those populations that will need that extra assistance?
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Collins? Ken, you're muted.
He's frozen in time.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, as many of you have, they're inherently addictive. Am I muted? I shouldn't be.
You're good. We can hear you now.
Okay. So what I was saying is that there are some basic contradictions in what we're being asked to do, because if the goal ultimately is clean energy, that may mean that we increase the amount of electrical consumption in the county if we can assist people in moving away from clean forms of energy consumption, such as burning oil, burning wood. So I can understand why people struggle with understanding what is being expected of us, because we just emphasis on the most vulnerable population. I think you miss opportunities to have a serious impact in terms of carbon reduction. And the matter is that in the winter time, which is time that we encounter serious problems with air quality, wildfires notwithstanding. The burn wood, very encouraged by the fact that the PUD, in reviewing the kinds of things that we would loan money for the first time, is able to consider providing assistance to the people to switch energy sources, which we hadn't been able to do before.
Commissioner Call, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but you're breaking up quite a bit.
It's
Yeah.
really difficult to understand what he says.
I think you're discussing the fuel switching. Oh, I think we lost him.
I'm trying
think
to,
anybody has
I'm
a
getting
worse
messages that
internet
my internet
connection
connection
than
is
me.
Oh, I beg to differ with you on that.
We've got to improve that broadband out there in Marrowstone.
No kidding. Jess, your hands up.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add to what Commissioner Collins was talking about, what I think he was talking about, and that is as people move away from other forms of energy to heat their homes and they move toward electricity, you're going to see more higher electricity bills. You're going to see more people who are going to need to take advantage of the programs that we already are offering, and that may account for a certain percentage of that 15% that we're discussing here. That's all I've got.
Yes, absolutely, Jessica. Well explained. Okay, any more questions? Okay, so the next, are there any more ideas for vulnerable populations that we should add?
Jean, the only thing I had, and I mentioned it earlier because it was something that we did at the onset of the pandemic, was to offer assistance for small businesses that were impacted by having to be closed. And if that might be something that wouldn't be a vulnerable population all of the time, but under specific circumstances. I'm not really quite sure how to phrase that.
I'm not sure that they would qualify under this, but I will put it on here and I will read through it.
Thank you.
Okay, so of those vulnerable populations that are most impacted, which of those would be more benefited by the PUD's efforts to meet this? That is a very poor way to put that question. I hope. Who would benefit the most from this assistance?
Well, I would think it would be low-income seniors, given our population age.
What are you saying?
That
Well,
we're
we
old.
are, yeah, demographically speaking, we are the oldest
County in the state.
county in the state, and I am above average.
Yay.
Well, it seems to me that we
In
don't-
all
Very good.
ways.
it seems to me that we don't have the information to answer this, Gene. I think basically you said there was some outreach going on to the PUD certainly has figures for what people use, at least in electricity and water for their energy purposes. But what you need is information on income. We do not have this as a group here. So it's something that the PUD is going to have to get from some other source.
Of course, yes, it is. But this is only a piece of it. Like I said, we will be putting this together with other pieces of the puzzle to come up with a big picture. What we're doing right now is just a small picture. You are part of the community. You are out there with the public. You live your lives. You have friends. You know the community in which you live, and you have ideas as to where you see those vulnerable populations. Where should we look? And who do you think would benefit most from our assistance? And that is what this is about. That is what this roundtable is about. As members of the community, what do you think we should do? Craig.
Yeah, I would add people with a permanent disability to the list.
Okay,
Well, that's good.
very good.
I think that goes the next line down, doesn't it?
Here?
Well, you put low-income seniors as a vulnerable population, and I think you may have to put them both places, but as a group of people.
Mhm.
So we will look at them. We don't currently track disability because we changed that program. So I will add them both places. That is
Okay.
something that we can start tracking.
Okay.
Kellen.
Perhaps this is redundant too, but obviously families, especially with school-age children, especially as a lot of schoolwork is being required at home, and being at home is taking a lot more, or is increasing energy costs for families.
And that goes for people who are forced to work from home now as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Seb. You're muted.
How dare they try to shut me up? The I
Good
think
luck
about
with that.
Like the farm kids that work at Red Dog Farm, and there's a bunch of people kind of on the younger age bracket that are, they can't afford to live in town. They have to live somewhere. The rents even out in Irondale are pretty high. So assistance to them if we can find them. There has to be an outreach, maybe through social media, to be able to get a hold of them in some way.
Maybe
Not sure how.
Chimicum Corners.
Mhm.
Chimicum Corners would know. They work with Red Dog Farm quite a bit. And
Yeah,
local
that'd be-
farmers. Yeah.
Be a good spot. Plenty of them.
Okay, Gary.
You mentioned earlier the 6% threshold for defining who are impact, I guess, is the income to cost for service. Has the PUD gone through an analysis to identify which areas of the county are above that 6% threshold?
We're working on it. Like I said, we are starting to track that as part of our low income program. And we are taking that data along with cutoff information, disconnect for non-payment.
Could you also do that through, census information or other types of financial information that's provided through other means besides just your own information, I guess?
Yes, we do have the census data, but we need to get granular. And so we're taking that data and we are going to run that through and map it and get like a heat map. So we are working on a heat map.
Yeah, that seemed like that would be an essential part of trying to identify which areas of the county, besides the anecdotal information that some of the members have mentioned, having some kind of statistical analysis would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I wonder what could be provided to us from the Department of Social Services.
I I can reach out to them, but they are quite, well, generally reluctant to share data. And it's all very confidential information.
Well, I appreciate that, but if what we could get from them is an idea of numbers of people who fall below a certain threshold, I think that that might be helpful. At least we could gauge the, it would be one way to gauge the size of the problem.
Yeah.
A follow-up comment, Gene, is that because the county's population is slow, typically our census blocks are pretty big. So it's really hard to be able to, zero in on specific areas. So I understand the challenge of trying to do some type of a heat map like you described, using census data. So, other things like the school lunch programs and things like that might be a way to be able to get that information as well.
Mhm. Yes. All very good input. Anything else on this section? Okay. So this is where it starts getting a little bit trickier. Help identify indicators. So indicators are the metrics that are used to measure the costs and benefits of the targeted actions the PUD is taking to meet the Clean Energy Act. The actions the PUD is taking to maintain an 80% or better mix of renewable and non-emitting sources over the next 4 years and to move closer to 2030 and 2045 goals, respectively, are as follows. Continue to purchase and provide 90% plus carbon-free Tier 1 BPA power to our customers. So, I mean, we're at 90%. We would still have 10% to go by 2045. And increase energy efficiency program offerings and kilowatt hour savings. So that goes into weatherization, windows, doors, heat pumps, things of that nature. And that is where the RESP program will come in for the loans to help assist with fuel switching. Because when upgrading, for example, to a heat pump, if you're using propane furnace, you're not going to get any rebate from BPA because it's considered fuel switching. So with you're not getting that cost reduction there. So that's where the RESP program comes in to help reduce that burden. The indicators must be associated with one of the following categories: energy benefits, non-energy benefits, reduction of burdens, public health, environment, reduction in cost, energy, security, and resiliency. So examples are down at the bottom, and this is what we were talking about earlier. Energy and non-energy benefits, reduction in cost. The indicator would be distribution of the energy efficiency program participation and incentive dollars. How many people are participating? How much money are we giving away?
No doubt.
Track the distribution of the energy efficiency program participation across customer types. So is that based on low income? Who's getting those benefits? And we would just use the current program data. Another category: public health, environment, fuel switching, RESP program. Converting to electric heating, cooking, transportation from fossil fueled equipment. So from a propane furnace to a heat pump, or from a 1990 Dodge that gets 10 gallons to the mile to a hybrid, those kinds of changes. So what we need to do here is come up with what those indicators are under energy benefits. And I'm sorry that this part is so difficult. Gary.
In previous meetings, I've heard discussions about the citizens to be, or ratepayers to be able to participate in some of the programs like energy retrofits and things like that. I don't know all the details. And it seems like the PUD has a pretty good track record of participation. But I guess my question is from an indicator standpoint, do you have the ability to get more information about how well the PUD is getting participants in those programs? Like, or if, for instance, if you had 20 people that are eligible, are we only getting 10 people applying? That type of thing. Is there a way to be able to measure that and say how well those programs are being used?
And that's the hard part, Gary, because we don't know if they don't tell us.
Well, sometimes I'm guessing you might be able to do some benchmarking, maybe compared to some population numbers or some other type of indicators that other PUDs are getting or something like that. I'm just trying to figure out a way to be able to say, are we getting the value out of those programs? It appears we are, because I've seen lots of reports that say that you're having to actually get money from other PUDs to be able to meet your requirements. But that is all I'm saying is that may be a good indicator of whether those programs are being used, if you can do some comparisons.
Is there any other input on this section?
Do we have anything? I guess I am unmuted. Jean?
Mhm.
Do we have anything, and I'm not really sure how it would play into here, but I'm thinking about recharging stations for electrical vehicles. That would be environmental, public health.
Mhm. So I can spell electric today.
Oh, you can always do EV.
Yeah. Okay.
And that, I think that, well, anything with the environment tends to be reflected in public health, because if we have more people who are using electric vehicles, we have less pollution.
Mhm. Okay.
And I'm not sure where any of the rest of this would fit in. As I said, having got this so close to the meeting, I haven't really been wrapping my head around it as well as I might have otherwise. But you've been really good at explaining things to us. Thank you.
Gary. You're muted.
Sorry, I was wanting to make sure I wasn't ahead of Craig, or jumping ahead of Craig and Seb. My comment, I guess, is on the reduction in cost part, which I assume is related to that 6% number that we referred to earlier. A simple thing to track there is whether that number is going up or down. Is the how many people are in that 6% category or above 6%.
Craig?
So I don't know if this is applicable, but the mill uses a lot of power. Is power factor improvement at the mill a possible savings?
Power factor improvement everywhere is a possible savings. It's not just
Right.
the mill. So
Yeah, but the mill has a lot of inductive motors, which my experience is where you get a lot of your lost, kVARs,
Mhm.
and whereas most homes don't really have that much inductive load. So any place that has a lot of motors, like the mill, or possibly, I don't know where else, anywhere like that, would be something to look at, because you can use synchronous motors to improve power factor.
Mhm. Seb?
Yeah, thanks, Gene. Going to very carefully look at Kevin's face while I mention this, but what about our own generation of electrical service or electrical power here on the peninsula? You know, I think Snohomish was looking into tidal generation. It seems there's a lot of wind around here, and it's not just hot air. I think probably Kevin's looked at this, and a lot of people do, but ultimately that plus some battery storage might give us a little bit more what you would call resiliency, maybe focusing on facilities that need that more than others. For instance, the hospital emergency services, fire and rescue, get them set up with a more localized power supply that has nothing to do with the BPA, at least in terms of a storage factor. So that's my thought at the moment.
I guess I'm having trouble understanding what an indicator is, but basically, you know, we're talking about EV charging stations. You could say heat pumps, hot water heaters, for any LED lighting. All of those things would reduce the amount of electricity used in the setting. And in resiliency, you could also put in microgrids.
Yeah, that's it.
Community solar. I'm just not sure they belong there. It almost looks to me like, well,
I'll figure out where they belong later.
okay.
I'm getting them close.
Well, then I'd definitely put in heat pumps and heat pump hot water heaters.
Okay, and gosh, okay, so well, it can go under energy. Let's see, EE.
Well, it could go under reduction in cost too.
Yeah, it could. Gary, is your hand, is that, oh, sorry, Tom, were you not finished?
Well, I could also mention, you know, this thing about a broad category of which would include things like upgrade insulation and replace windows, air sealing. What do you call all of those things?
Weatherization.
Weatherization, yeah.
Yeah.
Weatherization.
Okay, Gary, I think you're up, your hand was up next.
Yeah, thank you. When I think of resiliency, I think of keeping the power on. I know that the PUD already tracks and provides information to the RUS on their, I don't know if the exact rating thing, but how often the power goes out for durations and things like that. So from an indicator standpoint, it seems like the same thing that the PUD is already doing, and seeing how that tracks over time would be an indicator of resiliency of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I add is time of day rates.
Under cost reduction?
Yeah, you can put it there. And you could also put in advanced metering, both in terms of resiliency and reduction in costs.
And energy security.
Craig, I think you're next.
I know this is probably controversially and way out there, but there's a lot of work being done on new generation nuclear power. I believe they're going to build one in Wyoming. And being the time frame on this goes out to 2040 or something like that. it might be a consideration.
Okay,
It would be energy security, environment. It could
Yeah.
go under a lot of different things.
it could. We'll just stick it here since there's nothing there. Okay,
And what we do in terms of cybersecurity, I think fits under energy security.
yes.
And under public health, you could also put fuel switching.
Although it's been said that there's no fuel like an old fuel.
Boo.
Oh, boy.
Give him the rim
I'm
shot.
plagiarizing it.
Boom. I have a thought also, Gene.
Yeah.
And this ties into sort of the Kevin and Ken thing about the increased funding for fiber optic service. There's an immense amount of energy that's used in radio frequency transmission. In fact, I was reading some statistics 6 months or so ago about why in China, they were having a difficult time finding enough energy to power the 5G rollout that they're having over there. So there's no more secure or faster way to transmit information than in fiber optic cable. That can be hooked up to the meters that Tom likes so much without any problem with radio frequency radiation. Security is much better handled with that. And the sooner we get that rolled out, that will help to reduce the energy usage on cell towers. We'll probably still have to have them, but if we reduce that amount of usage, that would be also a significant savings overall to our grid.
And
I don't know
so
how you
we've
write
got
that in here.
Well, we already have the advanced metering in here.
Yeah, but it's way above
But
just
the
the meter.
fiber.
Yeah, way above the metering. I mean, you don't even need to write it down because it'll be an addition to all of those things foundationally.
Okay.
Just write RF.
Oh, well, that's true. Although I already got radio.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
RF's very convenient, but it's also a little bit sketchy sometimes.
Any other input on this section? Okay. Well, that brings me to the end. So, Kevin, I thought you were going to jump up and do a high five.
Yippee!
Okay, so if there's
It's
no-
3:30 and all the crews are driving out the gate, so
Yeah, okay.
I wasn't waving goodbye.
Oh,
He was
okay.
waving to him.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your input on that. And I'm sure we'll discuss this more as time goes on.
I hope we were helpful.
Very helpful. Yes, thank you.
And thanks for all your good work, Gene.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to explain. And I think we got some good input from everyone. So with that, we'll move on to, looks like it's time to adjourn. It's, see if I get a clock back up here. It's 3:34. If there is no other business for the day, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well moved.
Second.
Moved by Dan Taylor. Seconded, was that Seb?
was Craig.
I second it.
Oh, Craig seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you all so much. It was good to see you again, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you with greater frequency in the coming year. And have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating or not celebrating.
When's our
Winter
next
solstice.
meeting? We don't have a
Our
meeting.
next meeting should be in January.
Okay, thank you.
So, and that may be dependent upon if we can get a meeting and a joint meeting in with the Board of Commissioners, that would be great.
Good enough. All right,
Happy holidays, everybody.
thanks, and same to you. Good to see you, Don.
Oh, happy
Everybody.
holidays.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you, Jean. Okay.